Welcome to Bed Crime Stories Podcast. I'm your host, T. And if true crime is your jam, and like me, you enjoy delving into unsolved cases, trying to figure out who done it, please consider subscribing. Also, if you find value in my content, please hit that like button. Summer Wells' mother, Candus Bly, has been absent from 110 Ben Hill Road of late. Apparently, she's done some couch surfing to avoid having to stay at the house alone. It sounds like she's afraid, which should come as no surprise. If I found myself in her situation and living on that isolated, lonely hill, I'd be afraid too. She's surrounded up there by some shady characters. Fred Hill, Don Sherfy Jr., Andy Bernard. In fact, it seems like there's a culture of criminality in that holler. Who hasn't been arrested? I know there are decent people living in Beach Creek, but there are also a lot of lawbreakers too, including Don Wells and Candus Bly. Candus has also had to deal with uninvited visitors turning up on the property, so Candus has ditched Ben Hill for the moment and is now living, I'm told, in Georgia, far away from the Hawkins County Jail where Don's stuck. One of the people who allegedly offered Candus temporary shelter away from Ben Hill Road is a woman named Cathy. Cathy recently appeared on Squall Tit's YouTube channel to defend her friendship with Candus and to speak out about the unethical YouTubers who've doxed her daughter and who are turning up at her house looking for Candus. And she's right, that should not be happening. Cathy also seems intent on waging a campaign to humanize Candus and make a case that Summer's mother knows nothing about her daughter's disappearance. Cathy appeared wearing a mask that she said was necessary because of her allergies. I was wondering, though, if maybe it was also a convenient way to disguise her face so that people won't be able to readily identify her in public. Just wondering. Cathy claims that she met Candus after Rose Meyer showed up to a support group meeting that took place days after Summer went missing. Cathy doesn't say what this support group is for. I'm not sure if it has something to do with DV or something else. Meyer allegedly told Cathy that she had a friend she wanted her to meet. That friend was Candus Bly. For those of you who don't recognize the name Rose Meyer, Meyer is a friend of Candy Harr's from Wisconsin, and she helped Grandis when Grandis's daughter, Rosemarie Bly, disappeared in 2009. Meyer showed up in Beach Creek early on to help the Wells. Cathy goes on to describe meeting Candus, Grandis, and the Wells boys at a library the next day. Cathy states that she and Candus have been friends ever since, and now she considers Candus family. Cathy even hosted Candus and Grandis for Thanksgiving. I think showing compassion to people who are in need and suffering is a beautiful thing. I can't bring myself to rip on this lady for showing kindness. Sometimes I feel a pang of sadness for Candus too, but then when I think about her failing to search for Summer, failing to do everything in her power to bring Summer home, failing to provide a livable, clean, tranquil home for her 4 young children, failing to go to rehab, my compassion melts away. Cathy seems convinced that Candus knows nothing about Summer's disappearance. Of course, she's hanging out with Candus alone, not with Don, so she's getting Candus's perspective, and she's dealing with someone who doesn't want to take responsibility for whatever happened to Summer on June 15th of 2021.
And I will not turn my back on my girl because people hate her. People hate her for no reason. People hate her for her past, the things that she don't know.
Another goal Cathy appeared to have was to describe the dynamics in the Wells home. She paints Don as an extremely controlling husband. Take a listen.
Some of the dynamics of their home. Many people don't know this. It's because you think she's married to Don. They know everything about everything about each other. They know everything about what's going on. That's not true. Don had run to that household. Don came and went as he pleased. If he was at work and she would have company, he would constantly call. He would want to know who was over there, how long they were going to be over there, what they were over there for. He wouldn't even let her decorate her home to make it cute with pictures and little knickknacks.
What strikes me here is how Cathy goes out of her way to say that Candus didn't know everything that Don was up to. It feels like Candus, through Cathy, is laying the foundation for an argument that her husband Don had many secrets, often left their home for days at a time without her knowing where he was and what he was up to. Other people have said that Don often left his family for days at a time. Don's neighbor has said Don was rarely at 110 Ben Hill Road with Candus and the kids. But here, with Cathy doing the talking, it feels like Candus is beginning to point her finger more squarely at Don for Summer's disappearance. The message Cathy seems to be sending is that Candus cannot vouch for Don. She cannot say that he isn't responsible for whatever happened to Summer. Remember, he often disappeared without explanation, and he had secrets. So Candus is subtly throwing Don under the bus, in my opinion. The finger pointing has started to gain traction. Cathy gives us a naive, sheltered Candus, saying that Candus didn't know what a grocery store reward card was when they went shopping together. Eat Priceless doesn't have those kinds of cards. I don't think it's a big deal that Candus didn't know about that. Cathy also emphasizes that Candus has never been on welfare and never ordered anything online. These are sort of being offered up as evidence that Candus is not a bad person and that she's also out of touch with modern day living because Don kept her isolated on that hill without a debit or credit card. It's as if Candus has been living in a cave for the past 10 years, the Rip Van Winkle of Beach Creek, and she's just waking up now to discover Amazon, debit cards, and online shopping.
She's never even ordered anything online. Nothing. Not ever done one purchase online. She doesn't know how. She doesn't know the workings, the innings, the outings of society today.
Would you agree? I've tried to explain to people that, if you go in and you're sitting at the table with Candus, like you and I have done, and it's not hard to see, she has the social, like, aspects of maybe a 15-year-old. She's giddy like a 15-year-old. She's naive like a 15-year-old. She's vulnerable like a 15-year-old. She believes everything a person tells her.
Yes,
She will. She will. Just at the drop of the hat, she just believes anything that she's told.
I have a problem with this part because Candus clearly knows how to use her smartphone. She's skilled at making TikTok videos with special effects. She's not a technological idiot. I mean, I know people who have no clue how to make a TikTok video. If Candus hasn't purchased anything online, it might be because she doesn't have that debit card, and maybe Don only hands over cash. I do think that Candus may be lacking in a grown-up's sense of responsibility, that she has lived a sheltered life with Don, that she's definitely not worldly, that she does come across as having the maturity more in line with a 15-year-old. I mean, she was hanging out with H, and if we are to believe H, she was also giving him alcohol. Most mothers in their 40s with 4 young kids aren't spending their time kicking it with a 15-year-old. She does seem young in that sense, but I feel that Candus does have some street smarts. She's lived with Don Wells long enough to pick up some of his behaviors. She knows how to sell a lie. She knew exactly what to say during her interview with Chris McDonough of the Interview Room. She presented herself as a very attentive mother, someone who stood right there on the banks of the fishing hole, keeping a constant eye on Summer. The only slip-up she made was saying that everything was now in slow motion. She didn't know that that can be an effect from a traumatic event. Cathy also stated that the Wells never celebrated holidays or birthdays. I'm doubting this. On Candus's Facebook, there's a photo with one of her sons smiling over a cake with lit candles. It appears to be that child's birthday. Candus's Facebook also features photos of Christmas decorations, including a sparkly red wreath. There's also a bizarre series of images of holiday-themed blankets. I'm not sure what that's all about. Definitely not the type of thing one usually sees on a friend's Facebook, but all of these blankets featured a Christmas pattern. But while I do see some photos dispelling Cathy's statement about holidays and birthdays, it's hard to know how well and to what extent Don and Candus celebrated these events. Were there presents to open, special foods to eat, a Christmas tree with lights and ornaments, stockings hanging somewhere? It doesn't really look like it. We could say, well, maybe the Wells didn't have the money to afford those things, but then we know that they have the money to buy whiskey, vapes, and twisted tea. So that makes it seem like a choice the parents are making. They'd rather have whiskey and vapes than spend the cash on holiday gifts and birthday cakes. But there's also the addiction issue. When 2 parents in a household have substance abuse problems, there's probably no guarantee that a daily meal will be served, let alone a turkey at Thanksgiving. Yes, Candus was in a marriage where she was dependent on Don for money, and it appears that she was also in an abusive relationship. We know this because she called 911 that one time. Benny Keys has alleged seeing Don commit acts of DV against Candus, and we've heard her crying out in the background of YouTube phone calls. And I don't think Candus had too many options. Her mother, Grandis, doesn't seem capable of offering Candus shelter away from Beach Creek. But then Candus, up until 11 months ago, had 4 young kids, and I don't think she would have up and left without them to get away. But Candus is also responsible for the lean, mean, messy state of affairs at 110 Ben Hill Road. She can't blame everything on Don. I mean, she married the man. She had 4 kids with him. She moved to Tennessee with him, allowed the house to descend into a mess, invited strangers to live with her and her 4 young kids. She appears to have a serious drinking problem, a problem we've heard she refused treatment for. She's been said to have tested positive for illicit drugs when the police took her down to the station after Summer vanished for a polygraph. Her mother, Grandis, also wrote that Candus was addicted to meth at one time. I know addiction is a disease, but because she's a mother of 4, you'd think she'd fight and scratch and claw to overcome her demons, especially if people are offering her rehab. How far down is rock bottom for Candus? She's got 1 child missing, her 3 boys have been placed in foster care, and Don's in jail. That's pretty bad. On her Facebook page, Candus makes it clear that she's a rebel. She's seen in many photos wearing a face mask imprinted with the Confederate flag. Not a nice symbol, considering what went down in the South in the 1800s. And we often see Candus posing like some badass gangster. It's hard to reconcile that Candus with the one Cathy is describing. I know Candus's life has not been great. Her mother left her when she was quite young. Her father then put her in foster care when he found her too difficult to handle as a single parent. She's living in poverty from what I can see, and without a means of escape. Her husband definitely doesn't seem to be a kind, loving man, and he's been accused of and admitted to SA, so none of it's very good. But again, Candus is not someone who bad luck just keeps visiting. She drinks to excess by her own choice. She had those 4 babies with Don, likely knowing money was always going to be tight. She played a role in creating the filthy environment in which those kids were living. Neither she nor Don seemed too concerned with cleanliness or order. Candus has made the decision over the past 11 months to avoid talking to law enforcement about Summer's disappearance. That started right from the beginning. She's the one who also cried on Dr. Phil because they were asking her the hard questions, saying she wanted to go home. Well, what about your 5-year-old daughter? She probably wants to come home too. I don't think Candus deserves to be burned at the stake, but this Cathy lady is painting too rosy a picture of Candus for me. A picture that doesn't match the Candus we've seen pranking Don's sister Mary while Summer's missing, allegedly giving alcohol to a minor, refusing to answer questions on the Dr. Phil show, questions that maybe could have helped her daughter's case. The Candus cussing like a drunken sailor in Marseille while telling Ernie Shell how Benny Keys played her and how she's done with all those MFers. The Candus we've seen has appeared most upset when she's felt betrayed by her newfound YouTube friends, the Jennas, the Benny Keys, the Ernies. In fact, I think Candus has abandoned 110 Ben Hill Road mostly to avoid YouTubers. She did tell Ernie Shell she was done with all of them. If Cathy wants to help Candus, great. But if you find that people are hating on you for doing it, then maybe don't advertise your friendship on YouTube. Help Candus quietly behind the scenes. Telling everyone what a nice person Candus is ignores the 11 months that have gone by without so much as even one search organized by Candus. Summer's missing poster is now hidden by overgrowth, and when Jimmy of Dolly Vision offered to fix it, Candus said no. Ernie Shell, who I know is of a dubious character, but still, he offered to search on and around the Wells property, and Candus said no. When Dr. Phil and the behavior panel guys were trying to get information out of her regarding June 15th, she pulled off the mic and left the stage. Maybe instead of showing up on YouTube to sing Candus Bly's praises, Cathy should fly under the radar. And if she wants to help Candus, maybe focus on encouraging her to get sober and to share a precise timeline for the events of June 15th. Have Candus write down each hour of the day and say exactly what she was up to. The hours of 2:30 to 6:30 p.m. are of particular importance. Ask her to account for every single minute of those 4 hours. Shouldn't those be the top priorities? Once Summer is found, then maybe, Cathy, you can help Candus concentrate on the life skills part. Until the next time on Bed Crime Stories. Now please smash that like button.